Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome back to the Kiwi Lads channel. So Super Rugby Trans-Tasman Round 1 has come to a close. We had some close games, but also some not so close games. But one thing is for sure, and that is that I'm very excited that we have got Trans-Tasman Rugby back for the first time in over 400 days. We did get to see New Zealand sides taking on Australian sides, and there were some very exciting matches out of the 5 that were played. But in this video, I am going to be talking about the results, the statistics, and everything you need to know leading into round 2 that is going to be taking place this weekend. But if you do enjoy this video, be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. But nonetheless, let's get right into it. Right, so Super Rugby Trans-Tasman kicked off on Friday night at Forsyth Bar Stadium with the Highlanders taking on the defending champs of Super Rugby AU, the Reds. And the result of this match, I don't think too many people saw coming. The Highlanders were able to win it quite comfortably, receiving the bonus point, winning the match 40 points to 19 over the Reds. And at this stage, it looks like, since the competition is only 5 rounds long, bonus points will be extremely important when it comes to who is going to be making it to that final. But the Highlanders with a very good win here. The Reds not quite having their best performance, but they have got a big task next week, and that is going to be taking on the defending champs of Super Rugby Aotearoa, the Crusaders. And I feel like that match is going to be a very entertaining one. And this one, it had some very entertaining moments as well. The likes of the fact that there was a try scored within the first minute. It was for the Highlanders. And then from there, the second half almost was a role reversal to what happened early on in the first. But in the end, the Highlanders were able to get a comfortable win. And next week, they will be taking on the Western Force. And that was match 1 of Friday night. Quite a high scoring one at the time. 59 points. Didn't seem too bad until you see the match that did happen as the second match of Friday night. It was the Waratahs versus the Hurricanes, and I don't think anyone saw this one happening the way that it did. 17 tries scored throughout that match, and then the Hurricanes able to get a 64 point to 48 victory over the Waratahs. They do also receive that bonus point for having 3 or more tries than the opposition. But yeah, a very high scoring matchup, the 5th highest scoring one in Super Rugby history, and it seemed crazy to think that this was only the 5th, with the fact that there were over 100 points scored. But people have been questioning the defence of both sides, but some very good attack involved in that game as well, if you do want to look at the positives there. So it will be interesting to see how these two sides go in next week's matchups, because the Hurricanes, they are going to have the Rebels, who I will talk about in a short moment, and the Waratahs, they are going to be taking on the Blues. Now in match 2, we also saw an injury to Ruben Love, which was very early on in the match. Looked quite serious at the time because of the fact he did get stretchered off the field, but luckily, by the sounds of it, the injury may not be as bad as first anticipated. I know there were rumours that it was a broken neck, but from what I have heard, luckily, it isn't a serious spinal injury, which is great news for the youngster, because he has been playing some pretty good rugby for the Hurricanes in that number 10 jersey. And the last thing you want to see with these young talented players are injuries, because we have seen in the past injuries can shape a career. But luckily, he will be alright, and hopefully we do get to see him in the coming weeks of Super Rugby Trans-Tasman as well, because like I mentioned, he has been playing pretty well, pairing up with Jordie Barrett, who is playing fullback very nicely. And yeah, hopefully that is a combo we get to see in future weeks. So they were the 2 Friday night matches. Then we moved to Saturday night. The first game of Saturday night was the big one, the main event, as people were calling it, the match between the Crusaders and the Brumbies. Now this was one that people were talking about because of the fact the Crusaders winning Super Rugby Aotearoa, the Brumbies coming very close to beating the Reds in the final. And the Brumbies, they seem to be one of those sides who can kind of push the Crusaders, and we did get to see that on Saturday night as well, coming down to the final minutes of the match. But unfortunately for the number 10 of the Brumbies, Noah Lolesio, he wasn't quite able to convert. That would have made it a 33-33 draw, but in the end, the Crusaders getting the win by 2 points, and that gave them 4 points. They were the first New Zealand side to win the match without a bonus point, so I'm wondering whether or not that will have any impact on the rest of the competition in terms of where they finish. But of course, the Crusaders are a very strong side, and the match against the Reds that is going to be taking place this weekend should be a very exciting one to watch as well. But yeah, coming down to the wire, the first match for both of these sides in Super Rugby Trans-Tasman, and it was a very entertaining and quite nerve-wracking one at the end of that match as well, no matter who you were going for. So then the next match that did take place was the match between the Rebels and the Blues. Now this match started with an interesting tactic from the Blues. I found they were kind of going for that territory game, trying to push the Rebels right back into their own 22 and then also taking the 3-pointers when they were available. So it seemed like a new tactic for the Blues that they hadn't been using in past matches, but then all of a sudden it seemed like they just flicked a switch and they were well and truly in attack mode, kicking for the corner, going for 7-pointers, and they got a lot of them because in the end they were able to win that match 50 points to 3 of the Rebels. The Rebels, they were left tryless in this one, and unfortunately for the Rebels at the moment, they're in a tough predicament. Throughout Super Rugby AU, they were only able to score 1.8 tries per match, and it seems like throughout Super Rugby Trans-Tasman, unfortunately for the Rebels here, it could be the case once again, but the Blues receiving that bonus point, and with the points differential of 47, that well and truly shot them right into first place, and that is where they were sitting for the rest of round 1 as well. Then it was the last match of Super Rugby Trans-Tasman. It was the Western Force versus the Chiefs. Now this match was kicking off at midnight New Zealand time, but there was no way that I was missing it. Felt like it could be quite a close one, and that was exactly what it was. The most penalties throughout a game though, also 32 penalties conceded between the two sides. So there were a lot of yellow cards, 1 red card as well to Luke Jacobson, who did receive the yellow card for the Chiefs as well. And this game came down to the wire, and it all came down to one last kick. Domingo Miotti lining it up 1 point behind at that stage with the Western Force, but in the end did end up being the same as the one in the Crusaders versus Brumbies match, and he unfortunately hooked it away to the side. So that meant that in the end that match was finishing 20 points to the Chiefs and 19 to the Western Force. So very close one once again, but in the end it was 5 wins for the New Zealand sides, and unfortunately for the Australian sides, not able to pick up a win in that first round. But I am confident that throughout the next few rounds of this competition, they will be able to pick up a few wins as well. I'm hoping that statement doesn't backfire, but we did get to see some very close finishes in this round, and I am looking forward to round 2. So they were all of the matches of round 1. We will look at the standings now, and in first place it is the Blues. They are sitting on 5 points, of course, receiving that bonus point for being 3 or more tries ahead. Then in second it is the Highlanders on 5 points also. Third are the Hurricanes, and they are on 5 points also. Then in fourth it is the Crusaders, who are sitting on 4 points, and then also on 4 are the Chiefs, then followed by the Western Force in sixth. They are sitting on 1 point, and the Brumbies also sitting on 1. And then the rest of the Australian sides at this stage are sitting on 0. But that is the standings at the moment. So like I mentioned, bonus points could play a big factor in the later stages of this competition. So we will have to wait and see how it is going to be finishing. But now we will talk about the fixtures that are going to be taking place next week. I did mention a few of them a little bit earlier on. We will start once again with the matches that are taking place on Saturday night. The first one is going to be kicking off at 7:05 PM. That is going to be between the Hurricanes and the Rebels, followed by a match at 9:45, and that is going to be the Western Force versus the Highlanders. Then Saturday rolls around. We've got an earlier game on Saturday, 4:35 PM New Zealand time. It is going to be the Blues versus the Waratahs. That should be an interesting matchup. Both sides scoring 40 plus points in the last round. Only one of them getting the win though in that regard, but should be a very exciting match to watch. Then the next match is going to be 7:05 PM, and that is going to be the Chiefs versus the Brumbies, and that is another match that I am looking forward to, because those two sides, they both came runner-up in the Super Rugby Aotearoa and the Super Rugby AU competitions. But then at 9:45 it is going to be the Reds versus the Crusaders. The two sides who won Super Rugby Aotearoa and Super Rugby AU are going to be clashing in round 2 of Super Rugby Trans-Tasman, and that is the final match of the weekend. So they are all of the fixtures that will be taking place this weekend in Super Rugby Trans-Tasman. But what I will do is I will have a second part to this summary where I will talk about who is leading in terms of the point scorer of the competition, also the rest of the statistics such as who has made the most tackles, running meters, etc. So be sure to stay tuned for that. But nonetheless, that is going to be the end of this video. I hope you did enjoy. If you did, be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel, and I will see you all in the next one.